Welcome back to another episode of the Draw Control podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by Annie Mather, who is a player on the England U20 women's lacrosse team. In the 7 games that she played in the U20 World Championships, Annie had 18 goals and caused 1 turnover. Annie currently plays for the University of Exeter, and we're so excited to have her on the podcast so we can talk about stories like hers from players from England and different countries. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So, welcome to the podcast, Annie, and how is everything going? Thank you so much for coming on today.
No, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's a pleasure. No, really good. Yeah.
Well, I sort of wanted to start off the podcast talking about the beginning of your career and then sort of working all the way up to where you are now. So, on your profile, it says that you're from London, England. So, talk about growing up there and how did you start playing lacrosse?
How did I start playing? My sister played when she was younger. She stopped playing because she had a head injury, but she's 6 years older than me. So I pretty much grew up watching all of her school matches. And then when it came to going into high school, senior school, um, essentially in the UK, they pretty much all schools either play hockey or lacrosse. And so I applied for, I think pretty much only one lacrosse school, and all the rest were hockey. And the one I wanted to go to was Putney High, which was a lacrosse school. And so I just started, like, you just pick it up along with all other sports. And then as I went through school, I dropped pretty much all the others and then ended up just carrying on with the lacrosse.
That's awesome. Did you have like any role models growing up, like lacrosse role models that like you like looked up to and watched?
Um, I probably started looking up to people when I was about 12, 13, like moving into secondary school. Um, my lacrosse coach at Putney was Claire Fareham, who's in the senior squad. And she was pretty incredible. So she was definitely someone I looked up to when I was younger and still do now. Like at the moment, I'm on the same squad as her, which is quite special. People like Tors Anderson and Jane Lee, who, as I got older and started playing with alongside and definitely looking up to, they're awesome the way they play, I've watched their World Cups and all of their major tournaments that they were in. So they were pretty incredible. I think um, as I as I got older, I got a lot more involved in kind of looking up to people. Like now at university, there's such a big community with like lacrosse players. And especially like, for example, one of my best friends at uni who has left now, but she's 4 years older than me. She's now in the States playing. Alice Ripper, she does the same course as me. So she's a massive role model to me with how she balances like elite level sport and also quite a demanding degree. So she's definitely someone that like I'd look up to. But yeah, so many people, honestly, pretty much the whole of the senior squad, I would say.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, no, big fan of Alice Ripper. She's a really good player to watch.
Yeah.
Now, you currently play for the University of Exeter, so I do want to ask, in England, is there like a recruiting process for like when an athlete joins a university? And if so, how did you end up going to Exeter? And if not, I'm curious how you started playing lacrosse there and how that sort of works.
Um, I think that there is a recruiting process. Like you can be recruited and kind of coaches speak to players and also vice versa. You know, players will contact coaches saying, I really want to go to a uni, blah, blah, blah. And then they can have discussions about like the conditions and grades and stuff like that. For me personally, I never really reached out to someone because I don't really know why. I don't know, maybe it was like a self-confidence thing, but I also was always going to manage my academics and my lacrosse. So I was never going to go to uni solely for lacrosse. It was obviously going to be a huge, huge part. I mean, it's pretty much all I do, but um, I didn't want to pigeonhole myself too much and kind of feel like I had to go to a uni solely for the lacrosse. All of the unis I ended up applying for anyway were all very good lacrosse unis. So wherever I was going to end up, I was always going to be on a very good path for good sets of training and stuff like that. Um, but I ended up at Exeter originally because I didn't get my grades to Durham. And so Exeter was my second choice. But it's fine. It's definitely not my second choice now. Love Exeter, so I'm really happy I went. Um, but I basically had just put down my Durham as my firmed uni, and then Exeter's my insurance, and then I missed my grade, and so I ended up at Exeter. So I wasn't really like recruited to Exeter because it wasn't even like it was my second choice. But yeah, you can kind of make a process for yourself if you want to be recruited or go to a specific uni, but it wasn't really something that I got involved in like at the time.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool though. I'm glad it sort of worked out for you though.
Yeah.
I just learned that like in the UK, like you don't find out where you're going to school until like a month before like school starts, which is
Yeah.
pretty crazy because here in
Yeah.
the United States, like it's like a whole process and then you like find out like
Yeah.
months before you go. So you
Yeah.
have an idea. So
And
I
if
can't
you're going
imagine the
into
stress.
preseason, yeah, if you're going to preseason, it ends up being about a week before or 2 weeks before. Because when I found out that I didn't get into Durham, preseason for Exeter started 10 days later, I think. So
Yeah,
it was like,
that's nuts.
please go, go, go.
That's nuts. I don't know how you guys do that there. That's pretty crazy just to think about. But you probably think we're crazy, so I guess it works out.
Yeah.
Now, for those who don't know, like who are some of the players you get to play with at Exeter? Who coaches you, and who are some of the teams that you play against? Because looking at the U20 roster, it felt like half that team was on Exeter, which is probably must have been
Yeah.
nice for yourself.
Yeah, there's lots. Yeah, there's lots of extra players on our U20. Um, so it's mainly pretty much all international players. I mean, it's a pretty high standard, which is awesome. Lots of England players, both kind of in senior and development, U20 area. Um, and then we've got an Irish player. Um, there are some people who we play with who are in like the big squad in ones and twos, people who play for Sweden and Spain. So very like multinational. And then some people, it's just they're incredible athletes and it's a passion of theirs that they do at uni. Um, but yeah, I'm coached by Mike Molster down in Exeter, who is senior England coach, which is incredibly lucky for us to have. We pretty much just get first class coaching every day, which is pretty special given that some people only get it like one weekend a month. Um, but yeah, very multinational and obviously got a pretty incredible coach. And then it's split into a Southern League and a Northern League. So for Exeter, we're in the Southern League. And then, so we play teams such as Oxford, Cambridge, Bath, no, not Bath, Bristol, Cardiff, all of those teams, depending on what league they're in within the Southern League. And then after you play your league during the year, you then go into the Bucks Championships, where you then get seeded and North meet the South, basically. So there are teams that we don't end up playing to the very end of the year. There are also unis that like will never play, stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. What's been like your favorite memory with Exeter so far?
Um, that's a tricky one. Probably, well, my lacrosse memories with them kind of have only just started because I spent all of last year being injured. So I played 2 matches last year for them, and then I was on the sideline for the rest of the year, which wasn't the easiest of processes. It was quite tough. Um, and I'm still kind of in the midst of returning, but off the pitch, just alongside the team, it is just the most incredible group of girls, and I've made friendships for life. And yeah, I think being with them, the social aspect of it, um, learning such a huge amount from Mike as well, even if I'm not playing the whole time, has been really special. But yeah, not ideal. I mean, I'm kind of hoping that I'll get memories like winning Bucks goals, or we just won Bucks silver at a sixes tournament, which is pretty special as well. That's probably one of up there with my memories. But overall, just kind of the people you're with, friendships you make, yeah,
Yeah.
stuff like
I'm curious how you handled that adversity of being injured for the whole year, especially with the U20
that.
tournament coming up. How did that sort of like, I'm curious how you sort of mentally handled that challenge.
Um, I mean, I mean, I handled it because you have to handle it. You just got to get on with it. But it wasn't easy at all. It was really, really hard, and I missed out on a lot. There were certain selections that I had to make it back for. Um, so it was a lot of limitation and just getting back when I could so that I could be seen by coaches. So I had a chance of being selected, and then I was back off and then back on. And then once I'd finally made it to the tournament, it was about managing it all through the tournament. It was very difficult. I mean, I had like a 24-hour contact week with 15 hours of training, and 12 hours of those trainings was kind of standing on the sideline and just watching everyone do what you love while you're just kind of waiting to get back in the game. But it was hard, but you make your support system and everyone kind of rallies around you and you just got to get on with it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously, sort of how talk a little bit about like on the field wise, how you think Exeter has helped prepare you for that tournament because obviously being coached by the senior national coach
Yeah.
must be really beneficial for yourself, and then playing with some of the players that'll be your teammates for that team.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So obviously you make those connections and relationships with people that you then end up being on the world stage with is really useful to have been training with them the whole year or being alongside them, whether I was actually playing or not is a different story. But yeah, so the way Mike coaches England is the same way he coaches um Exeter. So all of the plays, the way we kind of run things is pretty much the same. Same mantras, he's got a phrase called hustle as a habit. So that comes in both Exeter, but also that's massive in England, of course. Like it's the same across all across. Um, but it's very useful just having him and I can review things with him. I was able to do film sessions with him and watch back footage so that I could, even though I wasn't physically doing it, I could like run through in my brain what to do and when and how. Um, yeah, and then the facilities at uni was really helpful for my rehabbing and everything like that. So that was nice to have my S&C coach down there, like access to different gyms and getting myself back on track as much as I could. But yeah, definitely hugely helpful having Mike as well, especially at a time when I was injured. It was nice to have his extra kind of game IQ to help me along.
Now let's transition and talk more about the U20 World Championship. So I'm curious, how does the selection process work for Team England, and where were you when you found out you were going to Hong Kong?
So the selection process was from September before the World Cup. We had a big squad of about, I want to say 45 players or something. And then we were training for a couple months all together. Then in January, we had our first selection, our first cut, where the squad went down to about 30 players. Um, and that was because we were then going on tour to Florida in February. So that selection was for that tour. Then in April, we had a tournament called Home Internationals where England play Scotland and Wales and any other kind of teams that come along for the ride. It changes each year. And then post that tournament was the real selection for the World Cup down to the squad of 22. Um, and I was in my dad's study because I didn't want to open an email was going to come through and I didn't want to open the email. I just wanted kind of my parents to open it, read it, and then just tell me if I was in or not. But when the email came through, there was a big chunk of text about what the next steps were to take, whether you'd been selected or not. And then you had to scroll down to the very bottom to see the team sheet. And so my dad started reading the whole email out while I was just waiting kind of behind the computer. And then I just got so sick of it. I turned around and just had to look at it myself because he was just being a bit stupid about it. But yeah, I was just at home with my parents and then had a glass of champagne and then got on with training for a World Cup.
Nice, nice. That's at least you got to just celebrate with your parents. That must have been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What was your experience like in Hong Kong off the field? Obviously a lot different of a climate than England, but it must have
Yeah.
been cool to sort of explore a different country with your teammates.
Yeah, definitely. So we had a few kind of compulsory team activities to keep us in keeping with our jet lag protocol, basically. But then there were times outside of that and before the competition started where you could kind of go and explore the city. Personally, I did not do much of that because I'm notoriously bad with the heat, especially humidity. So if I had any downtime, I was either kind of working or sleeping, pretty much is all I was doing. But I really liked Hong Kong as a city. A couple of my friends live there because they're international students from Exeter, and some family friends live out there. So it was really nice to kind of see a new place and see where they live and see what it's like. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, but I wasn't super touristy outside of the
Yeah.
tournament because I needed to wind down.
No, I get it. It looked like the jerseys were like sewed onto you because it was so humid, like just
Yeah.
watching it
Yeah.
from afar. So I can only imagine what it was like actually being there. But it looks like a beautiful city, and I really like how the stadium is like in the middle of downtown. I thought that was
Yeah,
pretty
the
cool.
backdrops of the
Yeah.
stadium were pretty incredible. Yeah.
Now, obviously, you were outstanding in the tournament, scoring 18 goals. I'm curious from your perspective, like what you thought was like the biggest thing that you got better at from game one of the tournament to the final game that your team played.
Um, Thank you, first of all, that's really kind. Definitely adapting to the weather conditions was something that I was quite apprehensive about at first. And it's really easy to kind of just moan about it, but you've got to just get on with it. So I had my kind of pre-game protocol, which got better and better in terms of like adapting to the heat and like what I was doing with my ice towels and my ice vests and everything like that. I'd say that got better. Especially because we had some games in kind of the pouring rain, some games in bright sunshine, and some games were kind of not too bad with the heat and stuff. So you had to adapt quite quickly. Um, I think probably my mental side of things I got better at because you just get hit with so many things that you don't expect, basically. And you have to stay mentally strong and on top of it and in keeping with what the job is at hand, um, and just get on with it. So I'd say I kept up with that quite well, and I knew how to switch off so that I was ready when I needed to switch on. And I think that's quite important. Um, but on the field, I'd say because you come up against so many different types of teams, types of plays, different countries and styles, naturally you're faced with so many different things that you have to adapt to really quickly, especially as an attacker. You get faced with different defenses, different goalkeepers, different ways that you need to play and adapt to. And so understanding my role on the pitch was quite important and how I could do everything I could to make my teammates look good and fit in such that I'm adapting to what I've been told to do when I go on and how I can do that to be in keeping with the rest of the team and make things run smoothly. So as the tournament went on and we knew what we needed to do, I think starting to adapt to that was something that I potentially got better at.
I
Yeah.
would say you got better at that. Yeah, not potentially. Now, obviously, in group play, your team played well. You guys won 3 games in that stage. I'm curious, what would you say was your team's key to success in the group stage?
Um, One of our biggest things at England is making each other look good. So it's never about yourself. It doesn't matter who scores. An assist is arguably a lot more important than who scores the goal. But it doesn't matter. It's kind of who's on the pitch when it scores because it's a whole when we score because it's a whole team thing. Um, but doing what you can to make someone else look good, to let them make someone else look good, to let them make someone else look good is really important for us. So we keep that going. And if we're always playing with that attitude, then it will come off. Things will start to come together. So that was really important for us to carry on doing. I think we had a mantra called Pug, which was pride, unity, and grit. And those are sort of just key buzzwords that like if ever you needed to take a check on anything, you just think, I'm playing with pride, playing with unity with my team, and just go out, hustle really hard with massive grit, and then things will start to fall into place. So I think we did that quite well, sticking to that, always reminding each other of those sorts of things. Um, but yeah, we did our research on teams. We had team meetings, we had analyzed them, we picked out players, we knew what was coming at us for the most part, I'd say. Um, and yeah, I think we just ended up succeeding in a lot of the games that we needed to.
Yeah. Well, there is one game I do want to ask you about, and it's the game against Japan. Obviously, your team lost to them, which ended your team's chances at winning a medal. But I wanted to ask you about that game just because, like, what made Japan such a good opponent, and what did you take away from that loss, especially from attacker's perspective? Because it was very interesting to see, I guess not interesting, but really fascinating and cool to see their defensive scheme and how it works so well. And I'm just curious from
Yeah.
your perspective what that was like going up against it.
Yeah, I think so. They're an incredibly fast team. They're absolutely rapid. Um, they're very well drilled and very disciplined. Like they're so clinical. They just don't make mistakes. Like when they have the ball, they will have the ball for a very long time. They will keep the ball and there's a very high chance they'll score off it. And so when they were having kind of 6, 7 minute possessions and then scoring off it, that was really difficult as an attacker to kind of not be able to help get the ball back because it's not in my end. Um, but to be honest, I took a lot away from their attack as well as kind of having a different style of defense played on me. Watching their attack, I had huge respect for them, and some of the athletes they've got on that team is really incredible. Um, and yeah, I think they also swarmed the ball a lot actually. So when the ball did go to ground on the off occasion, especially from the draw as well, actually, they would send kind of 3, 4 people, and they were just so unbelievably clinical at coming up with that ball and maintaining possession. So that's something that I really respect and kind of a part of my game that I really want to kind of hammer home and make sure that like obviously I'll hustle all the time, but the way that they kind of back up their teammates and they go for every ball, I think is something that every team can be taking into their game. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was a tough one to take as an attacker. It was really difficult. Um, but I think we just had to kind of play our own game. But it just didn't go the way we wanted to at that time. But yeah, it was a tough match, but it was really nice to see different styles of play and also the way that they have such quality over kind of how lacrosse is growing across the whole world, and with a standard like that Japan are bringing, it's really quite special.
Yeah, definitely we're very well deserving of winning that bronze medal, that's for
Yeah,
sure. So
for
it
sure.
was really
Yeah,
cool seeing that from just a fan perspective. But
yeah.
getting back to your team, so you guys ended the tournament by beating Italy, but then you guys lost to Puerto Rico. So I'm just curious, just talk about those games from your perspective and like what you learned from those final games as well, just playing those two opponents.
Um, from what I can remember, Italy was a very fun game. I think we, yeah, we won that great game quite nicely, basically. So it was a really nice opportunity for us to continue to make each other look good, just play and enjoy it. Obviously, slightly bittersweet in that winning that game wasn't getting us to our medal position that we hoped. It was getting us to kind of fifth, sixth playoff, which, at the time you just change your tune, you change what your goal is, and you go out hard again. But obviously, there's still that part of you that thinks that it's upsetting that it could have been for a bronze. But we won it. We won it really well. We played really nice lacrosse as an attacker. It was very fun. Um, but yeah, that was a really nice game to play, especially as it was like one of our last games, which is always quite sad. And then heading into Puerto Rico, that was just quite sad that it was going to be our last game together as a team. That we probably I mean, I don't think we'll ever play as that group of girls again, which is really sad to think about. Um, but it's your last dance. You just go out and enjoy it, and you do what you can. And we left everything out on the pitch, and then yeah, you come away just feeling proud of what you were able to do, controlling the controllables, and yeah, it was bittersweet, but
Hmm.
it was a good way to end it off, just with playing with the team one last time and enjoying it as much as you can.
What was it like being coached by Vic Alexander and the rest of the coaching staff in that tournament?
Um, Obviously a huge honor. I mean, they're incredibly experienced coaching staff, and I felt very lucky and privileged to have kind of all of their expertise thrown at me from all different walks of life. We had Connor, who was our attacking coach, Emma Adams, who has experienced it herself as a player very recently, just in 2022. So having her side of things was a huge treat to have on the sideline. Um, Vic and Connor know us very well because they've been involved with us since we were kind of 13, 14 at regional academy, just as you're getting into the England pathway. And then Georgie is hugely experienced with the senior team as well. So having her expertise was very special. As I said, Emma being a former player, only just recently retired, having all of her expertise was a very nice balance. Um, yeah, like it really was very special to be coached by them. I felt they knew the players very well. They knew how we took information. They knew their stuff. They were on it. They're our support system as well as, delivering the information that we needed to know to get on with the job. Um, Always good at hyping us up. Vic was really good at giving us, like, at the end of each meeting, she would kind of wrap it up with, you know, the punchy lines at the end that we're going to take into the game. We had like dominate as an example of one of them. So it's just you're out there on the pitch, just thinking, just go out and, dominate. And yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. Essentially. Yeah. Really, really nice.
Now, you also got to play with other great attackers during this tournament, specifically Freya Moody and Karis Johnson. And did you learn anything from just being their teammate, specifically Freya? Because it was awesome seeing how she dominated throughout the entire tournament. And it was an honor getting the chance to interview her for this podcast. And she seems like such a nice person, so it must have been cool to get to know her off the field as well, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, they're both lovely girls. Karis has been my roommate a few times, which has been pretty cool. Um, yeah, they're both outstanding players. They both do slightly different things. Karis works slightly lower on the crease. She's pretty much ambidextrous. She can go either side. She's great. Freya likes that top hand, and she's awesome at kind of nipping through players. And yeah, she's pretty special. But yeah, they both got such passion for the game, massive hustle, and they're just as athletes. I have massive respect for them. They're so unbelievably fit and athletic, and yeah, I do strive to be as athletic as they are one day.
Now, what are you going to take away, I guess, from your experience at the U20 championships, looking back on it now?
Um, it was a very, very valuable experience. I think at the time it was like the biggest thing ever. I literally have everything I was doing was for the World Cup, and I think I put quite a lot of pressure on myself. But I think it's important for me now just to look back at how incredible experience it was to work with those people, be coached by that staff, and take everything that I can learn mentally and physically, how I manage my body, how I manage my mental health, and the ups and downs of a tournament. Um, it's really not something that you can replicate without being in it. I mean, you get so many things thrown at you, so many different experiences and hurdles that you've got to just get on with and jump over. Um, so being adaptable, being coachable, changing how you need to as and when is definitely something that I'm going to take into hopefully future tournaments. But yeah, a really, really valuable experience just across the board. So yeah.
So let's transition now to a segment I like to call the non-lacrosse segment, where I ask you some
Yeah.
non-lacrosse questions, get to know to hopefully get to know you more off the field, and I'll answer some of these as well. So it can be sort of a fun conversation
Yeah.
that we both have. So first one is who is the funniest teammate on the England lacrosse team?
Um, I'd probably say someone like Millie Cant. She's honestly just jokes. Like she's actually so funny. She comes out with these one-liners that are just ridiculous, and I really do love her. Also Gemma, she was my roomie, and we had lots of laughs together as a roomie, as you kind of would when you're in a tiny room for 12 days
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. I had her on the podcast as well. She was awesome. So I can only
Yeah,
imagine
she's great.
what laughs you guys had in that room. So
Yeah, yeah,
now
for sure.
now which teammate has the best off the field style?
Um, Probably someone like Grace Davison. She always pulls out some cool outfit that I'd want to nab myself.
Yeah. I would say Annie, you probably have the best style on the team. I really like the necklaces that you have on, so I'll give you that title.
You. Thank you. That's very kind.
Now, next question is obviously you got to travel to many cool places, specifically Hong Kong, but what is one place you would love to travel to one day?
Either somewhere like New Zealand in the summer or Japan or Canada in the winter.
Oh, okay. I would love
Yeah.
to visit Canada. That's probably my number one. Like see
Oh,
like
really?
some of the different cities. Yeah, I'm a big hockey fan, so like it would be
Oh,
awesome to
cool.
see some of those games like in person. But then like outside
Yeah.
of that, probably just like other parts of North America, like the West Coast and seeing the national
Yeah.
parks. It would be really cool to sort of like actually see it
Yeah.
and just
Sounds
the
gorgeous.
whole yeah, the picturesque stuff of it would be
Yeah,
awesome.
definitely.
Now, since this is an American podcast, we've decided to ask you, what is one question that you have for Americans in general?
Um, I basically only recently started following all of the American stuff on Instagram. I still don't know what a Tar Heel is. No idea what that is. And I've got still no idea what like your years at college are. Like, so, I know what a freshman is because we have the same, but no idea what a sophomore is. No idea.
Sophomore is like your second year of college, junior is your third year of college, and senior is your fourth year of college. And that's how it's the same thing for high school as
Yeah.
well.
Oh, what? So how does the high school years work?
High school is freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. But like, so basically,
More years in
you're either a
between.
freshman. If you're a freshman in high school, it's your first year of high school. If you're a
Yeah.
freshman in college, it's your first year of college. If you're a sophomore in high school, it's your second year of high school. If you're a sophomore in college, it's your second year of college. So it's vice versa. That's basically how it works.
You
So it's the
got
same
you.
terms for different, I guess, parts of school that you're in.
And do you only have like 4 years of high school then?
Yeah,
Because you're
yeah,
in
4 years
school.
of high school and college. And if you want to do like, if you're like going to a grad school or something, you like obviously you could do that. So you're like considered a fifth year or sixth year or something like that. So,
Whoa. Yeah. Okay, well now I know.
and then a Tar Heel, I just looked this up, is the nickname for the state of North Carolina, its residents, and the University of North Carolina. I guess it's a term originated from the 18th century because North Carolina was a major producer of tar in the naval industry. So that's how it came about. I
There
didn't
we
know
go.
that too, so I learned that today. So um, I would say my questions I have for someone who lives in England is, do people actually use those red phone booths, or is it just more of like a touristy thing that Americans take pictures of?
I've actually got no idea. I personally never used one in my life. I think I have seen some people use them on the off chance, but I don't think it's like a done thing. I
Yeah.
guess I don't know if I'm sounding really ignorant right now, but I personally have not used one in my life. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. And then the other one I had was sort of like, I remember when the royal wedding happened and how it was a big
Yeah.
deal here. And I thought that was kind of crazy. Like, why is it a big deal here in the United States? But I'm curious, like, what it's like in England, like as of someone who lives there.
Yeah, it's pretty massive. Like you can go and join the crowds to try watch bits of it. But it's broadcasted pretty much everywhere, especially on the BBC. Um, and like you can hear all of the helicopters and stuff. And
Yeah,
if there are any, like if there's a flyover or anything, like you can hear the planes, and it's all quite, especially my house because I'm under a flight path, so they actually go right over my house,
that's
um,
cool.
which is really cool. But yeah, it's definitely a massive spectacle as well over here.
And then the last one I had, I apologize, is who is your favorite like Premier League team? Because I like
Oh,
watching
football.
that. Yeah.
I'm a United fan, Man
Okay.
United.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's the only soccer jersey I've ever like worn before was Man United. Obviously, it was like when I was a kid and it was too
good
small
team.
for me now, but
Yeah.
I just remember I thought the logo looked cool.
Yeah, I don't really know why my family's a United fan, but my dad's. I think it's because before it became United, my great grandfather supported it. So
Okay.
my dad's always been a United fan, and now so all of we, my
Nice.
siblings. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Now, what is your favorite part about England? Like, obviously, I'm curious, like, if you would recommend any place, like, for someone to visit, like, what would be the first place
So
you would tell them
like
to
a
go?
place.
Yeah, like, just like, yeah, your
Um,
favorite part about England, like, in general, and then, like, a place you would recommend for people to
okay.
visit.
In general, really controversial, but I love the weather. Like everyone complains about British weather, but I actually love British weather. I don't care if it rains. I love the rain. Obviously, it's like a little bit annoying if you're training and there's like horizontal rain, not ideal, but it's kind of a bonding experience anyway. You'll just get wet together, so it's fine. Um, but yeah, I love it. I love the cold. As I said about Hong Kong, I don't do well with the heat, so I really like that it's quite cold in the UK. Um, a place, London, I would say, which is
Okay.
quite but I love London. I think it's so nice. Like you've got all different parts of London. There's always like gorgeous commons and greens, like Hampstead Heath and Hyde Park, Primrose Hill, or me, I live in Wimbledon and we've got a nice big Wimbledon common, which is gorgeous. Um, I love the food, Sunday roast. So it's quite nice just to go down to the pub on a Sunday, have a Sunday roast. And yeah, I don't know. I love it. I just love London as a place. I would go there and do all the touristy stuff in London.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a place I'd love to visit myself. And that's pretty cool. The only thing I know about Wimbledon is like the tennis. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Obviously, I've never been to England, so I can't answer that question. So, but I think that's pretty cool. I definitely have to. I feel like the first place I would go is probably like the clock, like that. That
Big
looks cool.
Ben.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, central London is quite amazing. Like some of the buildings there are pretty awesome, especially like House of Parliament and stuff like that, doing the London Eye.
and don't worry, I don't think it's controversial. I'm much more of a cold weather person
Yeah, I'm a winter baby.
just because the humidity, it just like I feel uncomfortable and I just don't feel
Yeah,
as good as when it's
yeah.
like it's easier to warm yourself up than to cool yourself down. Like
I
there's
so
times where
agree.
like you have to like you're just drinking water and sitting down just because you need to cool off after like a
Yeah,
workout or something in the summer. And I agree with you. I'm definitely more of a
horrible.
cold weather person.
Yeah,
It
I'd
kind of
rather eat
sucks
that than have chocolate.
because I feel
Yeah,
like it's starting to get warmer for longer parts of the year. Like even in
yeah,
October, it's still kind of warm. And I'm
yeah,
like, oh no, like it's just only going to get worse, I feel like, as I
yeah.
get older.
It's so bad. It's November now, and it's meant to be horribly cold, and it's 15 degrees, 16
Yeah.
degrees.
Yeah.
It's not bad at all. Yeah,
So, no, I definitely like the cold. Snow is pretty cool. I don't know if you
yeah.
get snow in England, but that's like one of my favorites. Like
We
not when
have,
it like blizzards type snow where like everything
yeah,
gets shut down, but sort of like the snow globe snow.
yeah, yeah. We have had in the UK before, and in London definitely. But and I think they get it more up north than I do down in London because I'm more south. But yeah, no, we do definitely. But I don't remember the last time we did. But yeah, it is possible.
Now, the last non-lacrosse question I have for you, Annie, is if you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
This is so hard because I literally have so many people. Um, and I would I would categorize them a little bit. I'm into three categories. Basically, the first category is like if I'm being honest with myself and realistically just the really cool people that I'd want to have like lunch with would be like Harry Styles, obviously, and like Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds. I think that would just be so funny because they're best friends. So, and they're just jokes. I'm sure that'd be a really fun lunch. But then if I was networking, then I'd want to have lunch with like Toto Wolff and like Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz, all of the F1 drivers, because in a dream world I'd work in F1. And then people I'd want to have a good old conversation with and a nice natter with would be people like Roy Keane, Chris Hoy, and David Attenborough.
Nice. The only
So
thing I
quite a
know
few
about,
people.
no, that's good. I like all those answers. I would say like Roy Keane, like the only thing I know about him was like how he like I think he like headbutt Erling Haaland's dad like back in the day.
I wouldn't put it past him. Honestly, I think he probably did.
And he like
But
almost ended his career or something like that.
yes. Well, what a good talking point. But I think him as an athlete and as a captain, he's quite a special person. And I would like to talk to him.
So let's get back to a couple lacrosse questions now to end off this interview. First one is what should be done to help continue to grow women's lacrosse in England?
I think ultimately it comes down to funding. There's just simply not enough money pumped into it over here. Um, we need to get people playing from a younger age, which is starting to happen and is definitely growing. But when I started, I was 12, and like people in the US start when they're like 4, 5, 6. And it's come down, like people are starting to play in kind of year 5 rather than year 7. But I think the earlier we can get people involved, more funding from big dog companies, I guess, that can just pump money in is kind of where we need to be. But we're not there yet, but it is growing and it's definitely becoming more accessible. I think coverage of it needs to be a bit wider and more easily accessed. Um, Sometimes it's really expensive to watch lacrosse. I mean, even the fact that I can't watch US lacrosse and like college lacrosse, which is some of the best standard in the world, unless I have to pay however much a month for ESPN and have a VPN to prove that I'm in the US. I think that's
Oh, you
somewhere where
can't
the
watch it like outside. Oh, that's stupid. I don't like that. I
right?
guess there's probably some like rule, but whatever
Yeah.
reason why. But
You have to get like a VPN that doesn't have an ad blocker, and you have to get like ESPN Plus
yeah, and
for
pay
it.
the $15 a month for it. Yeah, that's a lot of hurdles.
Yeah, which on a student budget is not where we're at right now. Um, but yeah, so I think the coverage definitely needs to ramp up a bit and be more widespread across the world, and then more people will can get involved, more money comes in, etc., etc.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that, especially on the viewership thing, because obviously if people won't know about lacrosse if they can't watch it. So I think
Exactly,
trying to make
exactly.
that like easier to watch for
Yeah,
people like internationally to help grow it like outside of the US, I think would be awesome. And
yeah,
there's probably like a reason why they have that stuff, but like I feel like I if I were in a perfect world, I feel like they should make an exception for that, in my
yeah,
opinion. So.
I agree.
Now, last question I have for you, Annie, is do you have any shout outs you want to give and who from your team should we have on the podcast next? I think you're like the fifth or sixth player we've had on from England, so I
Yeah,
feel like we got to make it a goal to have everyone from your team on at some point in the next like few months. I know
oh
that'll be
wow.
hard because there's probably some players that don't want to come on, but we should try to make it work.
For sure. No, shout outs. I feel like I shouted out so many people already. Shout out mum and dad for literally facilitating everything that I do in my lacrosse journey. Um, who would I have on? Any other attacker, someone like Rachel Ball and Charlie Bell. They're so much fun. They've got so much insight. They're both at Nottingham. How they manage their degrees. Caris as well. She's doing law, how people manage their degrees alongside elite sport. Um, yeah, I'd say someone like that.
All right.
My fellow attackers, I'd say. Everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Annie, we could have this we can talk like for another like hour. It's been a lot of fun getting the chance to know you and learn more about your career and obviously learn more about England. But I appreciate you coming on the podcast and taking time out of your schedule. It means a lot and have
So
a
thank
great
you so much for
rest
having
of
me.
your evening, I guess.
Thank
Uh,
you.
that yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on though. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.